All right, let's talk about the single most important part of any sewing project. And, it's the one that everybody tends to rush through. I'm talking about the prep work. If you nail this part, I promise the rest of your project is going to feel like a dream. So let's dive in.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. When you think about sewing mistakes, what's the first thing that pops into your head? A crooked seam, maybe? A zipper that just won't lay flat? Well, what if I told you that the biggest mistake of all has absolutely nothing to do with your stitching?
That's right, the most critical errors, the ones that can really doom a project from the get-go, happen during those cutting preliminaries, and that's exactly what we're going to master today. Before you can even think about cutting, you've got to learn how to speak your fabric's language, and that whole conversation, it starts with one fundamental idea: the grain. You see, every piece of woven fabric has this kind of hidden structure. The lengthwise grain runs parallel to that finished edge, the selvage, and it is the most stable part, with almost no stretch. The crosswise grain runs perpendicular to that, and it has a little bit more give. But the real magic, that happens on the bias, that perfect 45-degree angle. It's got the most stretch, and that's what gives bias-cut clothes that beautiful, flowy drape.
And this is exactly why understanding the grain is, well, it's non-negotiable. See that grain line arrow on your pattern piece? That arrow has to be lined up perfectly with the right grain on your fabric. A piece cut on that stable lengthwise grain is going to hold its shape. A piece cut on the bias, it's going to stretch and flow. If you mess this up, the garment just will not hang correctly. So remember, rule number 1 is always follow the grain line.
Okay, so you've got the grain sorted out. What's next? Well, now it's time to play detective a little bit. We have to figure out the face, or the right side of the fabric. The side that's going to be on the outside of your finished garment. Sometimes it's super obvious, but other times you got to look for some clues. Think of this as your personal checklist. How's the fabric folded or rolled? Cottons are usually folded with the right side facing out, while wools are wrong side out. How does it feel? Is one side softer or maybe a little slicker? Take a close look at the print. Is it way sharper on one side? And here's a great trick for knits. If you stretch a little piece, it'll usually curl towards its right side. These simple tests will almost always give you your answer.
So let's break it down even more with a quick side-by-side. On the right side, you're looking for prints that are really crisp, a selvage edge that feels smoother, and any texture in the weave is just going to be more pronounced. The wrong side, on the other hand, might look a little blurry, feel rougher at the edge, and sometimes you'll even spot little things like loose threads or nubs.
So, you know your grain, you've found the right side. Now we need to lock that paper pattern down onto the fabric without any shifting or weird distortion. And that's where precise pinning comes into play. This isn't just about holding things together, it's about guaranteeing a totally accurate cut. There's a professional way to do this that creates a really secure foundation. First, always anchor that grain line arrow. That locks your pattern into the right orientation from the start. Next, pin the corners diagonally to fix the pattern in place. Then, you'll add pins all along the edges perpendicular to your cutting line. And finally, just smooth everything out one last time. Make sure there are no wrinkles, no bubbles. This systematic approach is the secret to stopping your fabric from warping.
And here are a few pro tips to keep in your back pocket. Placing pins perpendicular to the edge makes them way easier to remove as you cut, and it puts less strain on the fabric. Now, if you're working with something delicate like leather, where pinholes would be permanent, only pin inside the seam allowance. But, and this is a big one, don't go overboard. Using too many pins can actually distort the fabric, which completely defeats the whole purpose.
The pattern is pinned. The fabric is ready. The final step is the cut itself. But wait, not all fabric should be cut the same way. The right technique depends completely on the material you're working with. First up, tearing. And yeah, you heard that right. For really stable, firmly woven fabrics like basic cottons, you can just make a small snip and literally tear the fabric. It's incredibly fast and it gives you a perfectly straight line right on the grain. But please, only try this with the right kind of fabric or you're going to end up with a stretched out mess. Now, for fabrics that are more delicate, loosely woven, or slippery, the drawing a thread method is your absolute best friend. You carefully pull one single crosswise thread out of the fabric. This creates a tiny, perfectly straight channel in the weave, giving you an infallible line to cut along. It takes some patience for sure, but the accuracy is just unbeatable.
And finally, probably the easiest method of all. If your fabric has a built-in guide, like a stripe, a check, or a plaid, just use it. Cutting along a prominent line in the pattern is a quick, simple way to get a straight edge, and it is absolutely essential for matching up those patterns perfectly across your seams.
So, we've walked through the grain, identifying the right side, pinning, and cutting. Each one of these little steps builds on the last, and together they create a precise foundation for everything that's going to come after.
I really want this quote to sink in. It's such a stark reminder of the consequences. I mean, all the perfect stitching in the world can't save a garment that was caught off grain. It's just going to twist and pull and hang unevenly. This is exactly why preparation is not optional.
And really, this is the secret. Mastering these preliminary steps, taking that extra bit of time before you even think about the sewing machine, that's what will elevate your work from looking homemade to having a truly polished, professional finish.
So the next time you lay out your fabric, you can read its language and handle it with total confidence. You now have the foundational secrets to a perfect project. The only question left is, what amazing thing are you going to go create?